roll call,
Sure.
confirming who's here.
Eric Sanchez,
Present.
Bruce Friend,
Here.
Rita Hare,
Here.
Stephen Gay,
Here.
Hilda Parlay,
I thought I saw him online.
she's on there. Hilda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now. Thanks.
Alex Quigley,
Here.
Todd Godby,
Here.
Alex Granados, Dave Machado,
Here.
Shelley Shope,
Here.
Bartley Danielson.
He's
He's
here.
here, yeah, I think he just stepped out.
Yeah, he's here.
John Eldridge.
Here.
All right, we're good to go.
Thank you. The mission of the Charter School Review Board. The Charter School Review Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. Our ethics statement. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the Review Board. Does any member of the Review Board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, state them for the record. Please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. First item for us this morning is to approve today's agenda, or today's agenda, the entire agenda for the next 2 days, actually.
Bruce,
Get a motion to approve.
I'm going to recuse from Caroline and Chief
Okay?
because we've done some potential partner work with them.
Okay.
I'll second the motion to approve both agendas. Hilda
Do you have a
Prolly.
motion?
We'll use yours the first.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for today and tomorrow.
All right, now we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Rita made the motion, Hilda seconded it.
Post second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Okay. We also have to approve the November board meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the meeting minutes from November. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the November board meeting minutes?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Okay, they approve. Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to go right into amendments, and Ms. Nowinski.
Right. Good morning, Nikki Nowinski from the Office of Charter Schools. This morning, and it's also on eBoard for you to review, I have an amendment from Great Opportunities and Boundless Innovations for Girls request to relocate within 5 miles from their initial proposed location, and then as a result of that, decreasing their opening enrollment numbers. So Go Big is a public charter school in Mecklenburg County. They're scheduled to open in August of 2024 after receiving approval for a 1-year delay. Initially, they plan to open with grades K2, enrolling 100 students per grade level. And then when fully enrolled, Go Big plans to serve K8. Their initial plan was to open in the 28217 zip code, and they've requested a relocation to a newly identified zip code of 28204. This is less than 5 miles from the original location, and it remains in the CMS school district. This request stems from a projected long-term partnership with a local church, Little Rock AME Zion Church, located in the First Ward area of Charlotte. The church has offered Go Big the use of their campus as a temporary facility, and then possible collaboration to build a permanent facility on their church campus. So they find this is a viable facility solution for the short and the long term. Because of this relocation change, they also need to request a decrease in enrollment to get started because the new location, the temporary location, is very limited in size. And so the space available in the temporary facility would require Go Big to reduce their enrollment targets to accommodate students more feasibly. They also believe this will support their goals of establishing a strong school culture while ensuring the viability of the budget. And their new projected enrollment for the first 5 years is as follows. Year 1, they're on a delay. Year 2 would be K1, with a total enrollment of 140, K2 in year 3 going to 210, K3 in year 4 going to 280, and then in year 5, K4 with a total enrollment of 500 because they do expect to have their permanent facility completed at that time, so they want to go back to their original projections there. They have submitted an updated budget, which you do have in eBoard as well, reflecting the change in enrollment along with all the other required documentation has been submitted to the Office of Charter Schools. And so our office is recommending that the CSRB approve Go Big's request to relocate within 5 miles and then also reduce the opening enrollment because of facility requirements.
Thank you for that. Question that I have is, what were the enrollment? What was the planned enrollment? We have the numbers in front of us.
The planned enrollment was 100 per grade level. So initially, they were going to open with K1, 2. So they were going to do 100 students per grade level at that point.
Sorry, say that one. They were gonna do 100?
100, yes, per grade level
Are members-
initially.
Are members of the board or the school online?
They were not able to attend. Let me see, I don't see, I did meet with them on Saturday.
Is that Michaela Booker Johnson?
No.
No.
Is this a boarding school?
No, this is the one that originally applied to be a boarding school
Yeah.
Came
in
out without being boarding.
2021. And I can begin the discussion by saying I've reviewed all of my notes on the school and am not in favor of these amendments. They came in 2020 wanting to be year-round with K-5 extended day boarding, and then they came in 2021 with extended day K-8, adding the middle school, and then they're on a 1-year delay. And now they want to be K-1 and reduce by more than half the proposed student population in a different area of the county. They were approved as a watershed moment in North Carolina to have an all-girls STEM elementary school, and they made some commitments at that time. And I just feel like this application has now morphed into something completely different. And the budget that they did submit was somewhat skeletal. And the things that we asked for in the budget now, we can't really confirm if they're there or not because the budget's so broad. I just don't see approving this, again, because it's so different from what we originally approved. And maybe some of you were not on the board as we went through this process, so I give you that little bit of background, and I wish they were here to speak to that. But again, this has just morphed into a different school in a different area. And they were very specific about where they were and the goals with the girls in that area and that kind of thing. So I'm not comfortable with that.
I just want to get clarification. I don't think it's more than half.
It is. They were
Oh.
300 and now they're saying 140.
Well, all right, we just heard that.
100 per grade level, K1,
So they were gonna open year 1, actually, which
K2.
is year 2, K1.
K2.
No, the chart on my ass says K1.
Yeah, that's the one, the original was K2, 100 per grade level.
So it was 300 with a K2. Now it's 140 with a K1 and no detailed budget.
So not only is the enrollment in this chart that we're looking at, not only is the enrollment lower, the grade levels have shifted
Yeah,
too.
one
Okay,
different
I wasn't clear on that. That's not.
Yeah, and on eBoard, there's a 6-year budget that Charter School Success Partners has created for them.
So their year 2, in which they're opening, is scheduled to be 2024?
Yes.
Has OCS looked at this new site? Have you had a chance? Yeah,
Have not,
okay.
no.
We don't normally look at the sites unless they're not accelerated.
What is I mean, maybe it's in one of the documents, I've read them quickly. The facility, it's a church,
Yes.
so I see $144,000 in rent and debt service. We've got 18,000 in facilities, another 18, I guess I'm wondering what this deal is. Are they renovating this thing, the church, or is this straight rent that the church is making,
I can't answer that for you. I don't know.
Is it, I guess I'd ask you, Bruce, is it unorthodox to have an amendment request with no board members present to answer anything?
I would say that I don't. In my experience, from what I remember, if it's something like the just changing of the mission statement, probably not unusual for board members to not be present to answer questions. This is a little bit more than changing your couple of verbs in your mission statement.
Yeah, and we don't require them to be in attendance. They were offered that opportunity, and their schedules didn't allow for that.
Nobody, no board member, no, on Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, this is an overhaul, not a tweak.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
When you guys said all the paperwork was turned in, is that including like an educational certificate of occupancy in this church? Do they have that?
We didn't ask for that during this amendment process, but the church is existing and they do offer, the Sunday school things and
There-
whatnot.
I'm asking that question because I know that, maybe it's because we were looking at church too, and the fire marshal's like, nope, there's gotta be a sprinkler system, and if the church doesn't have a sprinkler system, they're not gonna be a school. So I mean, that's another question mark over top of whether or not this is an actual.
Well, elementary code, they're, that's why I'm wondering, is some of this money going to renovation or?
But the goal is to get back to the original planned location. This is just temporary for.
No, this is now the planned permanent facility as well. The church has stated that they would be interested in allowing them to build their permanent facility on their campus, so that they would remain in this area.
So my recommendation might be to hear some of the questions you would have, and then we could bring it back to the board and tell them they need to appear in January to hear this, so you guys can hear this amendment and speak to the board, because there's just way too many details that we cannot.
Yeah.
confirm.
Yeah, I don't know that we take a vote on this today. I think that
Yeah, well,
If they did, it
Right.
would be positive, I don't think.
I agree to that, Ashley, as well.
I can do
I
that.
feel like it needs to be a new application. Again, it's nothing like what we originally approved
Okay.
for this board.
That's true.
They also were reliant on a public transportation coordination, and we don't know how this new, everything changing would affect transportation.
Yeah,
Remember
they
were
did
wanting to
mention, and I do have some of that information here, maybe not as detailed as you would like, but they did address that in their letter. Charlotte Transportation Center is less than 1 mile away, and there's a CATS bus stop at their newly proposed site. And so transportation was considered here as well. I have that in an email that they sent me over the weekend, because I asked that question as well about transportation, and that was their response to that.
We don't have that letter.
I have it in email.
Okay, no, that's
no.
okay. I was just wondering if I overlooked. that.
I did not put it on eBoard. I can certainly share it with you, however.
That's okay.
Would it be okay with board members if we just say, we're not gonna vote today, we're gonna request that they come back in January and answer these questions?
That's,
Yes, Mr. Chair, Hilda Parley approves.
we don't need a motion or anything else like that. I mean, we just move it to the agenda for
Yeah, I just
January.
think we move it to the agenda.
I'm good with that.
Okay, I will make sure that
All
happens.
right, let's do that.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
And I would, when you speak to them, I would suggest that they need to be here in person.
Okay.
Not Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
will
you.
do. All right.
Would you want to request a new budget?
We don't typically allow them to
I know,
submit new budgets.
so we'd have to approve it with what's the,
But I think to Ms. Harris' point, like, how much of a change in the original application are we gonna consider? Because they did submit new budget.
I think, I don't know the answer to that. I think
think we
that's
take
why,
that into
that's why we're
Yeah.
asking them to come back. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with Rita. This application is totally changed.
I agree.
Alrighty, let's move along. Ms. Rackley, we have second round interviews.
Yep, good morning. And so in November, we concluded our first round interviews, and we have approved, your board has approved 3 of those applications. We had 3 withdrawals. Yeah, we have three and then 3 denials. So that leaves us with 6 applications, all of which are second round interviews. We'll hear from 4 of those applicants this month and then 2 final applicants in January. And so the committee chairs gathered all of the second round questions prior to this meeting, and the Office of Charter Schools distributed those questions out to each applicant. We allowed for a minimum of 10 calendar days to receive responses from each applicant, and so we have those, and we've made those available on eBoard. The second round is designed to be abbreviated in nature. 45 minutes are allotted. Those responses to questions are available, but you are not limited in scope to just asking questions of those that were provided for second round response. And so you have the 45 minutes here will allow each school board a 5-minute introduction and then a Q&A session for 25 minutes, followed by a closing statement by the applicant, and then the deliberation and vote by the review board. And so you can move on to the next slide there. And then next month, those are the 2 that we have. And so our first applicant for today is Carolina Achieve, again slated for Orange County. Your board asked there were only about 2 questions that was asked of Carolina Achieve relative to the budget and the affinity groups. And so the board of Carolina Achieve did provide written response to those questions. You have the enrollment summary there, their food and lunch summary, so I won't repeat that. They are not an EMO school, but their application was, there was application assistance provided by Leaders Building Leaders. Mr. John Oxel is here representing the Carolina Achieve Board. I will allow them the floor to make their 5-minute introduction statement. They do have, I believe, full representation -1. I think Ms. Michaela Booker is online, but the entire board of Carolina Achieve otherwise is in person. So if you all want to make your way up for your 5-minute introduction, you do have the enrollment projections relative to Orange County there. You can see all the subgroups and the educationally disadvantaged comparisons there. And so please, you have the floor, Mr. Oxel. Thank you.
Thank you guys for asking us back. We really appreciate your time. And I'd also like to just say thank you to the charter school community in general for how generous everyone has been with their time to help us do this application. I'd just like to step back and say once again what our mission is, which is rigorous reading, writing, arithmetic, academics in general, using learner-centered techniques and an overlay of entrepreneurial studies. We believe that will give focus to the students and teach them lifelong lessons about like persistence, working on teams, being part of a team, leading it, and so forth. And that'll teach them good skills. We had 3 board members that were not able to make the last meeting, and I'll ask them first, Anjanette, to stand up. She was on Zoom. She gave you her bio, and Tom Nekaba, thank you, Tom, and finally Jeff Clark. Jeff Clark was on a delayed airplane at the time of the last meeting, and it was delayed for a day, so he was unable to attend. He was in the air. So I'd like him to give his bio for you real quickly, and then,
I'm just going to remind you, have 5 minutes, and so we want to make sure we get to your questions as well, so just time
yeah,
check. All right.
yeah, I told him that he's not allowed more than 50 seconds.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Clark. I live in Durham, and I am a board member for Carolina Achieve. I'm an entrepreneur, venture capitalist and angel investor, and have worked for almost 30 years to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Research Triangle Park. I have served on over 30 boards of directors, served as board chair for many of them, and have served on over a dozen audit committees, including publicly held companies, and I've chaired most of them. I have extensive fundraising experience, having led efforts at Duke University, including the entire medical center, and I have chaired or co-chaired numerous development committees and capital campaigns of regional not-for-profits. I'm incredibly enthusiastic about our efforts at Carolina achieve the Start Moving Charter School, and look forward to working with the board to help it reach its full potential. Thank you.
That's it. All right, thank you. Yeah. Okay, Caroline Achieve was before us earlier this fall. As a reminder, this was the vote to bring them to a second interview was unanimous with Mr. Quigley recusing, as he is today. We had asked 2 follow-up questions. One was directly related to the budget, which was tied to the facility, and there was some challenges with where the school might be, where they wanted to be versus where they may end up. The second questions had to do with affinity groups, and wanted clarity on what those affinity groups might be, and how would they be, how would they foresee those being managed within the school. So they've provided us the responses to both. So I want to open it up to CSRB members if you have any questions based upon the responses that they gave to those 2 questions. And obviously, we can go back and ask additional questions if we wanted, but let's start with those 2. I'll open up. What's the latest with the facility in terms of where the school might be located? Any updates since the last time we were together?
Would you like us to answer now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're still pursuing the facility. There seems to be some opportunities. I think once we get our charter, it'll be really much easier to get a formal hammered down plan. As I said in the response, we've modeled the size of the facility will dictate how many students that we have. And given the number of students you have, that lets you know how much you can pay for rent or facility costs in general. And so we've used the Acadia North Star templates to model out schools of various different sizes, and that lets us know how big the facilities are that we can have and what the cost will be. And the good news is there's a variety of solutions that will work. I'm pretty confident of that, given what stuff costs in the area, and what's available, and so forth. Steve Hubrick from Hubrick Contracting, who's if you don't know him, he's one of the larger charter school developers in the South, has agreed to work with us and continue to work with us on whatever sort of plan that we have to have.
So in your original application, you were at capacity 900 students, K through 8. Are you is it fair to say you don't know yet if that's going to be lower or higher based upon where you might put the facility? Where's the goal to
Certainly our plan is to have 100 students per grade, and to start out not with the whole thing at once, start out with a smaller subset of it. It really depends upon what space we can get initially. I think we would.
So let me reword the question. You're looking to acquire a facility that would still support these numbers if at all possible.
Yes.
100%.
Okay.
charter, they will be happy to enter into negotiations for what we would want to do, whether it's a facility or it's a space where we put up trailers to meet the exact numbers that we had set on here. So.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking that question is, obviously you just heard a discussion we had about a prior applicant, like.
We have no plans to
Yeah,
go
don't come back in
lower,
2 years
yes.
and say we need to cut by more than half, right? So. Other questions?
I have a question. I missed their original interview in September, but I did review the application, and I felt like it was a great team that they put together. I always read the board members' information form to see why they signed up for this and what their background is, and I thought they were excellent. And their governance section looked really good. I was a little bit confused as to, were they at once accelerated, and when did they revert to standard? Was that part of September's meeting, or was it prior to that?
No, they reverted before even the applications had been reviewed, which is the reason they were allowed to do that.
Right, like around June?
Yeah,
think I
like
saw that.
before you guys even received it, yeah.
So that's good. So now the plan is to open in August 24?
Five, yeah,
25?
that'll be standard,
Okay,
yeah.
y'all have my note on here. So I did read the questions that were submitted, and I didn't have anything to add to that, and I've read the responses and felt satisfied with the replies and the plan.
Any other questions or?
I still have some concerns about this affinity group, but if it's done well, it's gonna be really good. If it's not done well, it's gonna, and what I think is good is gonna be different than what somebody else thinks is good, so I'm just challenge you to make sure that, it's done well.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Bart Danielson. The board they've assembled is really good. It's excellent. And the idea that of an affinity group concept, you never know what's gonna happen in execution. In terms of how well thought out this is likely to be, I can't imagine there'd be a board that would be any better in that regard. I've had previous interactions with Mr. Nekaba, who is world-renowned as the wrote the leading papers on the impacts that school choice have on neighborhoods. Nobody ever writes a paper anywhere in the world on that topic where he is not centered as really the founding person in that whole idea. I told him long ago I thought he deserved the Nobel Prize in economics. I still do. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to nominate for that. But obviously, given my view that one of their board members should have the Nobel Prize, I'm enthusiastic about the board they put together.
Thank you. Am I correct too in assuming that, and I think we covered this during the last interview, with the change in where the school might actually be, is that dramatically changing where you feel the students will be pulling from? It's still sort of that Orange, Durham, maybe even farther away as Alamance, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we will pull from the same group of students, being on the Orange-Durham County line there, whether we are a little bit north or a little bit south, we're still, because we are offering transportation and we will be having busing for our students, we will be able to attract students from the same demographics that we presented, and possibly even continue to diversify our group.
Thank you. Any other questions from CSRB members? Okay, we're hearing none. You have 5 minutes for a closing statement.
I'm going to give the same closing statement I gave the last time, which is in Durham and Orange County, sort of the typical grade schools and high schools have between 17 and 30% proficiency grade level proficiency in math and reading. And if you're middle class, lower middle class, it's really unfair because the private options are not available to you. And our goal is to have a school that's going to provide an education as good as any that you can get in our area for these students. And we believe we have a good plan to achieve that. And we have Tiffany, who's world-class, leading up the educational push. And we think we can achieve it. We want to achieve it, and we're excited to get going.
Thank you. All right, this is our time for deliberation. We have up to 10 minutes. We can certainly ask the applicant additional questions we have, but just conversation amongst ourselves. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if I can say anything after what Bart said. I'm ready to make a motion to go ahead and approve Carolina Achieve to Ready to Open.
You have a motion? Second, any discussion?
It just seems like they're doing it the right way. They're thinking about a lot of things that they need to, in terms of the population they say they're going to serve. And then, of course, put the cherry on top.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Ashley, can we do a roll call vote? So the motion is to move Carolina Achieve to the Ready to Open process.
Eric Sanchez,
Aye.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Stephen Gay,
Aye.
Hilla Parlay,
Approves.
Alex, recused. Todd Godby,
Aye.
Dave Machado,
Aye.
Shelley Shope,
Aye.
Bart Danielson,
Aye.
John Eldridge.
Aye.
Congratulations. Now the real work begins.
Yeah, wait for RTO meeting. I haven't seen anybody from that school.
We are way ahead of schedule, so do you guys want to take a brief break?
Sure.
Okay.
Is the next applicant here?
I don't think so.
I haven't seen it.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break, come back. If you're not here, we'll take 5 more.
We'll take 5. Maybe there's coffee to drink back there.
Do.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, sir. You been okay?
All right, yeah, thank you.
What's that?
Ashley Vaquero. I'm gonna do the director's updates before we get started on the next application. So our next meeting will be January 8th and 9th. You guys will get your agenda a couple weeks prior, and we'll reach out about that. But we will be hearing from, we should be done with applications at this point, so that's great. And we'll be really trying to wrap up charter renewals. So we'll hear some more charter renewal presentations. You also will hear the annual financial presentation on the charter renewals. So that is after the audits have been submitted and any updates that we need to present after that. School business will come to you guys and present on that. Anything that has been kind of moved and needs some more discussion regarding renewals, like you might hear from some today or this week or tomorrow about renewals that you want to also discuss in January. So we're continuing with that. We do have a new hire who will be starting January 2nd, so you'll meet her at that meeting. Her name is Julie Wetzel, and she has previous DPI experience, which I think will be really great for acclimation. She also has extensive exceptional children's experience, so I think that will be nice to have at the office as well. You all know the news about Jenna, and she will be working with us as long as we can kind of keep a transition going with her, so she can transition whoever ends up taking over renewals. But we have been very, very blessed to have her in the office, and we'll miss her. Our school improvement team, which was a new team we formed this year, we finished all of our continually low performing and low performing selected site visits last week. So we've been doing a lot of site visits. All of our documentation and our monitoring framework was revised and really created this year with Nikki leading that, and we feel like the process has been really positive and informative. So next week we meet as a team to discuss what we saw and then kind of think about next steps. But you will begin to hear from the low performing schools starting in February. We usually annually have them come and just do a brief update to you guys so we can kind of see them in person, hear about the school, that sort of thing. Our annual report process has started, so Nikki's also leading that. And if any of our charter schools are listening and have awards or recognitions or any innovative programs you would like us to highlight, we're always looking for that. We also will be sending out a survey with the kind of information that we need from schools to help provide kind of internal data, so please be on the lookout for that. In January, another really important item that will be brought to you is updates about the application. So any updates that might need to take place within the actual application before it opens at the end of January for the next application cycle. And the most probably significant change will be that legislation now allows remote academies for charter schools. So we will present kind of information about what that legislation looks like and how we're anticipating it looking in terms of an application process, and hoping to get some feedback from you on that. The 2025 renewal process has already started, so there are 40 schools next year, so it is a very large cohort. Those renewal sites will begin in January, and we have decided internally that for our schools that are recommended and are eligible for the 10-year, which as you know is required if they meet these certain requirements, the legislation says shall be awarded a 10-year, we are going to be doing virtual visits for those. It's just, we don't have the staff or the resources to do 40 separate site visits with multiple staff. So that will begin in January. Our Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year processes are in place, and Natasha's leading that, and we're going to have ceremonies this week, so that's really exciting. We also have the CQ Scholarship starting up, and this year they have given us 10 awards for charter school students. So if you're a charter school listening, please keep your eye out for that, because we want to get as many applications as possible. Those are great awards for our great charter school students. RTO session 4 is this week, so we have 5 sessions. The last one's in January. That Natasha's also leading that on Wednesday. Yep. And for the 2023 RTO group, those are our schools that are starting up to open in the fall. our RTO team within the office has reviewed 1,018 items submitted on behalf of those schools. So it is a pretty thorough process. And performance framework, which is led by Joseph, that is wrapping up the 2023 process, and that team has reviewed just under 1,500 items. So very busy in the office. And then finally, NC Access, we've got a no-cost extension through September. The final professional development is wrapping up this year, and there will be an in-person monitoring by I believe by the Department of Education or whoever they kind of contract with to do that in March. So it's a busy next couple of months.
Thank you, Ashley, for that update. I'll add as well just a few things that have occurred since the last time we've met. John and I continue to try to keep lines of communication very open and clear with both the department as well as the State Board of Ed in the new world that we're operating with as our own independent authorizing body. And I certainly want to continue to have those open lines of communication with all parties and keeping them informed of the work that we do and the decisions that we make. Speaking of decisions that we make, one update that you may or may not be aware of, you'll recall that in November we did not approve the request from Heritage Collegiate we listened to their appeal, but we did not approve them for entering ready to open. State Board of Ed had a committee hearing 2 weeks ago, and their recommendation went to the State Board of Ed last week. The State Board of Ed upheld our decision not to grant Heritage the opportunity to go ready to open. And likewise with the School for Arts and Boys outside of Pittsburgh, you'll recall that we voted to revoke their charter effective December 31st. The Appeals Committee listened to their appeal of our decision. They recommended to the full State Board of Ed that indeed that SABA be closed effective December 31st. That too was upheld unanimously by the State Board of Ed. So the office of Ashley's team will be working with that school over the next couple of weeks for the closure processes. Again, last but not least, in the new world that we're operating with, the opposite, we actually don't have an attorney, but we're working on in communication with the department about finding some funds and finding a potential attorney that would be solely dedicated to the work of the CSRB. And so I'll continue to keep you updated on that. I think we're making some good progress on that. So.
Given the recent email from Dr. Bazemore about to the state board, and I don't know if you all saw that.
Which one?
Yeah. So I mean, as expected, given the past experience, I just want to clarify. She quoted me in there, and I just want to clarify. It was taken to some degree out of context. She cut off the end of it. I'm not going to go back and forth and respond, but I just, on the record, what I said is what I believe, that we have a situation, it's the funding environment and the real estate environment in the state that is, and with the sunsetting of access, that is making it more difficult for non-CMO and non-EMO, so schools that are not backed by like a movement foundation or have the capital such as Charter One, or that it makes it more, we have a challenge for the schools like Carolina Achieve to start from scratch, which is how, if I look around this room, a lot of our schools were started. I think all of us, and particularly with the competition in the sector for startup, the expectations from parents about what they want to see from a facility, and that doesn't mean that I don't support CMOs or EMOs. So I'm supportive of both of those if they are going to run a good school. All I care about is, do you run a good school? And but I also want to say, like, I do think that the legislature or the state should think about a low interest startup loan to schools that we approve, because how are you going to buy furniture? How are you going to fund a principal's salary so they actually have time to get started?
I got the access grant for
And you still-
Central Carolina. You have to have money to spend to get reimbursed.
It's reimbursed. It's reimbursed. This is, like, we have created a situation where the schools that we vote for are in a that is exceedingly difficult to get started. So if we want these schools to be successful, they need startup capital. And if we want schools that are not, that come from the ground up, which is, you know, the exciting, because they're come out of the community, we need startup capital. And it should, in my opinion, it should be even a low interest loan from the state, from the $1 billion that we have in reserves, or from the lottery money that we don't have access to, that a charter school can pay back that money over time. And I know there's a concern that, okay, we don't want to give any money to a school that's brand new, because they might not make it. But you're just making it more likely that they're not gonna make it if they don't have money. And so, I know that's a diatribe, but this is a serious, serious issue. Like, when we start talk about I feel like we're voting for these schools and sending them off into an environment that is exceedingly difficult to get open. The planning environment, the politics that we're getting blocked, West
Zoning.
Triangle, I've walked through that. We had a dream situation that was completely blocked, obstructed, related to politics. And we had a dream campus that we were gonna combine forces with Carolina and Chief. And we need, you know, maybe someone in the legislature is listening, like, we need to make some moves so that when we vote for a school and we say, hey, we're excited about this, that it actually has a better shot of opening successfully and staying open. The other piece is that I think we need to change the structure of the approvals so that schools get a charter and they have 3 years to open. How many schools do we have in delay? What percent? Like 70%?
A lot.
60% of the schools are in delay, and I bet there's some more coming. So what does that say? At some point, we have to look at the structure of the application and authorization process and say, this doesn't work. Schools need 3 years to get open. It seems like at a minimum, like it's too hard. And opening in a church basement is not a super viable option anymore. I think if we look at the schools that we've closed, almost all of them are like church basement schools.
Alex, you make valid points. Valid
Putting
points.
it out there, just putting it out there. Like, I
That-
just think
that
part of the job of this board is to advocate for better policies for charter school success. If we want to ensure and meet our mission of ensuring high-quality schools in North Carolina, the authorization and startup process needs to be, some things need to be restructured. We need funding to me, in my analysis and looking at it and walking through it with West Triangle over the last 2 years, we need startup funding, and we need a longer ramp to get open, and access is about to go away.
So true, so true.
To my point where, I think I don't disagree with much of what you're saying, and to my original point, I think we're gonna try to get some legal representation to help us.
Yeah, Alex's points are valid, and I'd like to also add that the state need not be the only source, and I'm not suggesting it shouldn't be a source, need not be the only source, that county commissions end
Yes.
up funding local schools, and the cost of funding a seat in a charter school are substantially less than funding a seat in a new public school building, which tends to be tens of millions of dollars in cost. And the state, if there, a policy option that the state might consider is to allow county commissions to offer loans to start up charter schools as well. Frankly, I would extend it to loans to private schools also. I realize that's not our world, but we now have Opportunity Scholarship Program that's gonna
Right.
fund a lot of children there. These are, tax rates would be lower in counties, and that is an economic positive.
Right.
So county commissions would have reason to be supportive as well.
And those things take time to navigate, which is why
Right.
we need a situation where they're not requesting a delay year over year.
So does that mean this board would need a subcommittee to investigate all of this? Will we need to create a subcommittee?
I'll take that under consideration, perhaps. I wanna
Okay.
get us back on track. I think our applicant is here now. Okay.
Okay.
Melanie Riley, Office of Charter Schools. So Mervyn Simpson Walker Academy for Boys is our next applicant. There were greater than a dozen second round questions that was asked of this board. They provided written response, and those responses are available via e-board. There was also some supplemental documents, letters of intent of support that the board also included. And so obviously you have the liberty to ask questions beyond what was provided by way of the second round interview. We have the enrollment summary there, their mission statement. They are a repeat applicant. We did hear from them as a standard applicant in 2021. Murda Simpson is slated to be a single gender school for boys, and their enrollment projections are based on pulling all of the 500 students from the CMS school system. Our next slide actually has their projections relative to Mecklenburg County there, where we currently have, I think, 34 charter schools and 185 traditional schools there, 1 lab school in CMS. And so, again, abbreviated interview period of 45 minutes allotted, so we'll allow the board, Ms. Johnson to come up, and then there are 3 members of her board online, Mr. Hunt, Ms. Jackson, and Mr. Conway. So at this time, I'll allow Ms. Johnson and the Murda Simpson Walker board the floor for their 5-minute introduction.
Okay, thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
The Murtis Simpson Walker Academy for Boys is a part of my grandmother's legacy and is what she represented. She represented strength, character-driven leadership, entrepreneurship, music for inspiration, and community service. Our school is a focus of excellence and structure to be the foundation for our young men who will be strong and pillars of the community. We have exceeded our goal of reaching a 95% increase in our interest survey. As a strong charter board, we all have different strengths and experiences that will enable us to have a powerful school that will benefit all young men. Our board is comprised of educators, a financial expert, human resource person, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit members. The Achievement First curriculum is culturally inclusive and is aligned with the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. We are incorporating entrepreneurship, music, and character education that will help develop our young men to be innovative thinkers who are character-driven. We have supporters such as the music director from Claflin University and community members such as Colin Pinckney and Reggie Singleton, who have been longtime supporters of my work with young men in the Charlotte community. Thank you.
Okay, so we appreciate you being here this morning. Now it's time for our board to go a little bit further into the questions we've asked. If anybody has any questions, now's the time.
Could I be reminded what happened 2 years ago in the school with the first application? A lot of times if they don't open, we send them off with a charge that this would improve. Does anyone recall? I couldn't find in my notes how that vote went.
Ashley, do you recall? I do not.
This is a repeat, right? They were here in
It is
2021.
a repeat. When they were before us a couple months ago, the vote to give them a second interview, for what it's worth, was 7-1 in favor.
This is also a repeat application,
Yes.
correct?
So I guess I still have a question about, it's question and concern about the enrollment, and are they gonna hit this target audience? If they were to be approved, they'd be opening in 2025 with 300 students, K through 5. Looks like since the last time there, the interest level is now at 306 families. Yes, they still would have plenty of time before 2025, but I think as we just have recently gone through another school that was a single-sex focused school, they too were telling us all the time that the numbers were there, or the numbers would be coming, so I still wanna have that confidence that in 2025, I mean, as all of us would know, 300, you're gonna need to have well over 400 applications to get to 300 students. So maybe they can provide me a little more peace of mind on that this morning.
Why don't you go start there, because it does say that there's 306 families. What's the grade distribution for that? Like, so there's 306 families, but how many of them are kindergartners? Do you have that information?
It was a variety, it was a diverse number of students in grade levels that had interest. In our school, we did break those numbers down, within the survey that we had, that we presented the second time around when you invited us back. I would say the majority of those families had kindergarten students, because what we did was we targeted the daycares. We solely went to the daycares, beginning years, and uptown Charlotte, and we looked at different areas. We went to different areas: uptown Charlotte, East Charlotte, Midwood. So the majority of those students that we did, or families, did have kindergartners or will be kindergartners in that year we will open, or they were 3 years old now, but they will at least be in kindergarten by the time the school opened.
When you were with us in October, you mentioned that you were going to partner with a marketing group, and that you would also be holding various events. Have you done the marketing group?
Yes, we did work with the marketing group, and what he advised us, of course, to do solely grassroots marketing as far as social media. He did help us with organizing a list of organizations and people we should target, and that's exactly what we did as far as working with that marketing group. As far as I guess having certainly like planned events, we actually went to an organized community event, which we had at least almost 100 families to complete the survey, and that event was at the end of October, and that was in Midwood, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Have you had any other events since October?
As far as other events, no. So what we did after that, we actually, like I said, we went into the different daycares, because we felt that our reach would be greater by going to different daycares in different areas of Charlotte, since that's the target audience we would want, and especially the 3-year-olds to like kindergarten age. We felt that would be better and more beneficial in order to get that support.
But it has to be consistent.
Granted, and it was, like I said, we did the event at the end of October. We went to the daycares, and that was consistent as far as going into those different places, the different areas in Charlotte, having attending the different events. And so the support as well as reviewing the survey and the interest and listening to the parents, everyone felt that we have surveyed, felt, of course, there was a need. They would, if you're looking at the survey results, they said that they would definitely enroll their child, strongly agree or agree would enroll their child in our school. That is when it does open.
Ms. Johnson, is she finished? Was that it, Hilda?
Yes, for now, thanks.
You don't wanna interrupt. The number that you're using of 306, the way my notes read, it was over 2 years ago that the first 149
It was
families,
149, right?
they actually signed an interest list, like.
Actually, they
an interest
completed a
list.
survey. Maybe that was reworded wrong. It was actually a survey. Now, this second go around, we did have an interest list as well as actual parents had to complete like a 10 to 12 question survey, which is more detailed. And it asked specific questions like what grades would your child be in? Would you enroll your child in our school? What are some concerns you have with your current school system? So we dug a little deeper to get the results that we definitely needed.
Are you saying that that was the same
And that was almost
149?
300, beg your pardon?
Are you saying that that was the same
That was
149
outside of the
families?
149. This was this go around, the second go around, the second interview cycle. We had almost 300. We had roughly about 150 who completed just an interest list.
Mhm.
And then we had almost like 250, almost 300 participants that actually completed our survey. So 149, that was the first interview cycle. Now the second interview cycle, we had an interest list as well as about a 12-question survey.
In my mind, the 149 who signed an interest list 2 years ago may have moved on. Are you counting that number?
We did include that number, but we also included the number, we had over 150 people that completed the interest survey for this second interview cycle. And then we had about 250 that completed this interview for this interview cycle.
Okay, so your 306 number is a fresh, new number from this
Correct.
interest cycle?
Yes, it is.
And you have names and grade levels and
Yes, I do.
interest indicated from 306
Yes, we do.
families, not children, but families who may have multiple children?
Yes.
Is that what you're
They
saying?
also included in that interest survey, we asked the question, how many children or young men you have in your family?
Do you know what the total children involved would be on that 306 families?
It was about 240, about 245, because the majority of them did have children. Because we were very specific, the events
Okay.
that we targeted have, of course, involved children. We also went into those different daycares. We went specifically to daycares, that's who we targeted, daycares and specific children's events.
Mhm. So out of the 306 families, you identified 245 children? Is that what you just said? I got your
Yes,
number.
right.
Are you saying some of the families didn't have children of the 306?
Some of them did not,
Okay.
no.
They were just
but-
interested in seeing the school start?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I know this was asked, but do you have any sense, you said a lot, it was heavily weighted towards kindergarten.
Yeah, it was kindergarten, lower elementary.
Do you have any rough numbers of the 245 and how it's dispersed K through 5?
It was roughly with I'll say kindergarten, it was probably, I would say roughly about 150 to 200. Because like I said, we did heavily focus on those three-year-old to that younger age daycare programs.
What are you guys I don't have as much experience as you do in single gender schools, but I do have some experience from growing up. And what I think we noticed was, of course, the older the kid got, the more difficult it was to get the family to commit, to that. Are you anticipating anything similar with regard to your recruitment? Do you think, especially since your numbers almost bear that, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, well, according to my interest list and speaking to the families in the community, and if they do or they don't have children, and also by working in the school system, parents, and especially the population that we are targeting, that Black, Hispanic, actually, let's say all students, all young men, people feel, whether you're Black, white, Asian, people feel that there's a strong need for an all-male school in the Charlotte area, looking at, according to our test scores, suspension rates, referrals, especially something different, it's a music and entrepreneurship focus. People are excited about that. I honestly, in my professional opinion, and also,
Bless you.
I spoke to, well, actually visited one of the schools in Miami, single gender school. It's a secondary school, but speaking with him, it will not be a difficult, in my opinion, we're Mecklenburg County, to get those numbers, 300. I think our families are looking for something different. They're looking for a, like I said, a public school with a private school feel. They wanna see the education, excel, especially, they wanna see they wanna see something that's gonna really benefit our young men. And, I mean, there's no guarantee anything or everything. We can talk about numbers, but let us show you instead of just talking about it. I know what I have presented in the programs that I have worked with, working summer camps, working in the school system, exceeding those numbers, being a first-time person working a summer camp and exceeding the numbers of over 100 students in my first year. I know what my work ethic is. We definitely all know what's needed in our community. The data may not support a high number of single-gender schools in elementary and middle school in the United States, but it works. The data support that young men do better in single-gender schools versus than girls.
May I ask what events did you have in November? Did you have community meetings in November?
Okay, so we did not, we decided not to do the community events after we spoke with the.
I can't hear the person.
Is the mic not working?
After we spoke with,
Better,
our
thank you.
marketing, okay, after we spoke with our marketing, the marketing person, Bob Betty, working with us, he suggested, he said, well, you know what, save that money instead of focus on going into those daycares and those businesses. So we did not spend our money to have a marketing event or community event, but what we did is we collaborated and went with other people who had events, like the event we went to at the end of October, and then also we decided to heavily go into those daycares as well, where we know where we would have to market in order to get our clientele from, our young men.
Okay, excuse me. So really nothing was planned for November?
We did have something planned, but after speaking with our marketing director, the person working with us on marketing, I know initially we did say that, but after that he said, well, you know, save that money versus instead, he organized a list for us with different daycares, organizations that we could work with, churches. And so what we did, we instead focused heavily on those daycares because that's a guarantee because we know the students are there. And to pull information from the parents and daycare providers.
Are there any other, remind me, are there any other all-male schools in the Charlotte area?
No, it's not.
And do you have a plan, in the follow-up questions, there were 2 questions related to board members' either experience in working with a single-gender school or having visited one. And it sounds like the only person on the board who has done either of those is the same person. So is there a plan?
Had also George Hunt, who's also on the call. He has also visited a single gender school, and as my co-chair.
Okay.
And where was the school?
Miami.
The school I visited was in Miami, Florida, and the school he visited was in Virginia. George, are you on the call? Still on the call?
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And how old were the schools? How long have they been in operation?
Beg your pardon? So the school that I visited in Miami was actually a secondary school. It was sixth through 12th grade. But it had a similar focus as what we're doing. And so, of course, by speaking with the principal, Dr. Eduardo, I loved what his focus of his school was: character-driven, leadership-driven, college career focused. They also were uniform school as well, and that's what we're also doing.
So I guess my question is there a plan and a commitment by other board members to be exposed to whether it's visiting other schools or having those school leaders come to you? Because it sounds like of the board, you know the most of this, and maybe one other board member has visited a single gender school.
Yes, they do have a commitment, and you all can, other board members, you all can speak on that as well. But everyone is committed for this school, to this school. Like I said, we're all educators, parents, entrepreneurship. We all have different strengths, and we all have different experiences. And some, honestly, I know some of our experience, of course, the board members that do have children, they have boys, and they're in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and they voiced their concerns with, of course, some of their young men that are in the school system, some differences they would like to see, some different options. So everyone doesn't have the same experiences, but we all have the same commitment, and that is to make this school happen so that other children, young men in the community will have better options, because unfortunately, all of our students are not in the same, may not have the same parenting or same experiences. So we want to provide that structure in MSW. We want to provide them with different options. Like I said, I can go back and we all have different experiences. We have different expectations. But what we do want to see is MSW Academy for Boys happen. It's necessary in Charlotte. We can talk about the data all day long. I think what you all need to see is see us in action and see us really work in the community, which we all do. Because a lot of people can say a lot of things, but I know for me, I and all of my board members, we take action.
Do we have any other questions?
I do. The two schools that your board has visited, were they charter schools, traditional public schools, private schools?
Okay, so the one in Miami is under Miami-Dade Public Schools, so it's in the public school system. And the one in Virginia was, I believe it was a charter school that George had mentioned.
And your application says you're gonna be at zip code 28105?
You see the location?
Yes.
Yes, that's close to the,
How did you choose that location? What kind of research?
why? Well, the reason we chose it is not as saturated with schools and charter schools as the other areas. And I know during, speaking with our realtor, he said it was the best location as far as cost-wise. And then we also found a building in that area as well.
You visited Young Men's Prep Academy?
Yes, I
And
did.
that's in Miami?
Correct.
Is that grades 6 through 12?
Yes, it's
Have
middle
you
school.
visited an elementary all-male?
I have not visited an all-male elementary school. Mhm.
Where are the startup funds? What's the source of that $185,000?
We'll be working with Howard Soul, his company, and he is going to be our startup. our startup resource.
Would that be a loan?
Yes, he would assist us with the startup costs that planning year, as well as he will help us to give us the loan for the school as well. That's Howard Soul, that's Sowell.
I'll also add that the city of Charlotte has a strategic focus on community entrepreneurship right now. At the University of Charlotte, we're introducing curriculum to students. So there's a lot of opportunity and there is funding available to support efforts that reinforce entrepreneurship, commercialization, and teaching those concepts earlier in the education cycle.
One of the questions, second round questions, had to do with the support needed for your students. And as I'm reading this, so your plan is to have one counselor for the 500 students? And
Okay. I'm sorry.
Given, given the population that you're planning to serve, I guess I still question, is that enough?
Okay,
Is
so
that really the case?
well, I know as a school counselor, I know my caseload is about almost 500 students. It's not, I guess it's not really highly recommended, but what we will do and what we are doing is we are partnering with Holistic Mental Health Agency, as well as, if necessary, and our budget does allow, we will hire a part-time counselor.
A second counselor.
Yes.
I had questions about your budget as well, Ms. Johnson. I expressed them, I believe, in the questions I submitted, but I really have not received satisfactory answers.
Okay.
For your EC services, your budget shows the same fee for 5 years, even though your student body will swell from 300 to 500. And your subcontract is the same way. You will add 8 more classes in year 5 than you had in year 1, but you have the same budget for the subs. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be viable that way. You add middle school and you have no additional funding for curriculum and text in that year, and you have a very low marketing budget. If I remember correctly, 3,000.
Now, I can help explain that. So a lot of the costs that we're talking about with the increased costs, so let me go for one of your examples, such as you said the books.
Right.
So the plan is on the first year is to buying the books for the most of the entire school, for the school students that we currently have. And any additions after that would be that's how we were growing. That increase each year will be the increase in the students, because we're not going to be buying a whole new set of books every year. So a lot of the ways that we have the cost is we're trying to avoid major large costs of cash flow each year. So we try to have it broken out through the years. Like, for example, I know one of the questions was regarding their music, that we have a major music funding in the second year, but it then starts decreasing years after, even though the population is growing. And the basis behind that is year 2 is when we buy the most amount of our instruments. And then only after that would just be more of adding the small amount or maintenance. So that's how a lot of our cash flows are broken out.
Yes,
Now, do you have, what was the other example that you also said?
No, I noted what you're saying, but my reference is under curriculum and text. You do have a first-year fund to purchase probably an adequate amount, but in year 3, as you're adding 7th grade, you've already added 6th graders, you're spending $7,000 rather than the $45,000, and you've got 2 middle school grades now without sufficient curriculum and text. There's no budget after year 1 to speak of to continue to add this growth in students. In music, you do have that 1 year, but it's not year 1, it's year 2. So I'm not sure what you're doing in year 1. But in year 2,
Well, year 1, just also mentioned, the music budget has also recently changed due to some of the letters of intent for donations for that. So that's also going to really help us in year 1. So by year 1, we were going to be focusing a lot more on the business entrepreneurship. And the second year was going to be our big enhancement on money flow towards music. And back to your question about the curriculum, each grade is the additional 7,000. So our anticipation was we weren't going to be adding the 50,000 each year. So for the the curriculum texts, the 45,000 is we're going to be buying for all of, what do we say, 300 students, and the 7,500 will be the additional books for each additional grade. In your opinion, are you saying that 7,500 is not enough for the additional grade of book purchase?
I'm actually saying that it's a number of items in combination that just raise concerns that the budget will be able to be a close estimation, close projections for the funding that you actually need in several categories. Another one being electives. I mean, the electives teachers with the emphasis that you have on entrepreneurship and musicianship, and you say that you're offering 4 9-week classes that have 10 options for students, and that every teacher will be certified in their area. And then you have 2.5 elective teachers budgeted. It just doesn't come together to me to see how that's going to work. If you keep the commitments in your application, that's what I'm saying. You have these commitments about your mission, which is the music and the entrepreneurship, and it greatly involves your elective courses. And you say that they will be degreed in their area of instruction.
Correct.
And I agree with you. And also, I do also want to push that a great push of our entrepreneurship is bringing in the business leaders from Charlotte, as we've already been meeting with entrepreneurs to see what schedule we could set up for having them to be coming in and pushing the entrepreneur foundation that we have set up for the school.
And as far as the entrepreneurship, we are partnering with Junior Achievement, and that's an awesome. I've worked with Junior Achievement before, and they provide the educational materials for the entrepreneurship program as well. So, and they are aligned with North Carolina Standard Course of Study also. So
Okay,
that will alleviate some of the cost within our budget.
All right, you have 5 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay. George Hunt will give the closing statement.
I believe George is having mic issues. It's really.
Okay. Well, I'll give those closing statements. Okay. So, thank you all for having us. I do want to stress, Berta Simpson Walker was my grandmother. I've worked in the school system, and because of her, that's why I do what I do. I love the educational piece. I want to see all children succeed. And people ask, you're a female, why are you starting an all-boys school? And naturally, I did work with all girls. But when I started at working at the middle school level, I saw that there was a need for working with young men, because I looked around and no one was working with our boys that needed additional push. And so I hit the ground running and started working with the young men at my school. And so I just continued to push, better for them. And I saw that there was a discrepancy, and I saw how they were being treated, and I saw that, there was, when you looked at the data, that there was an issue, and then the educational expectations were not on the same level. And so I just continued to push and push and push, and I wanted more for them. Wanted more for our young men in the community. I wanted to see them succeed. I wanted to see them be the best and be pillars of the community. I was the only girl on both my mother and father's side. I was the only girl. And looking back at where I am right now, I guess God was leading me to where I am right now and on this journey. Of having an all-boys school and seeing how, the young men in my family, how they were brought up, you know, having high expectations, having manners, and some of those things I don't see right now, of course, in the school system, in some of our young men. And, you know, I'm proud of, you know, my family, and that I was the only girl, and I saw the expectations. I saw what should be done, and I saw, you know, how, what should be expected. And I saw that there was a need. Instead of just talking about it, I did something about it. I'm solution oriented. And God blessed me and it put the right people in my path to help me to execute this plan. We have the ideas, we have the solution, we just need to make it happen. Nothing is perfect. That's why we have all of you and your experiences that can help us make this the top school in North Carolina, and it will be. And we're just here to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now time for our deliberation board. Any comments?
Well, I certainly hear what Ms. Johnson is saying about the need for something to reach young men in this area. Something that's directed with to their learning style and to their needs, and something that would capture them if she believes that it's music with entrepreneurship, and also the desire to honor her own legacy, her family's legacy through her grandmother, and the same passion that she had for this population. So I have a lot of respect for that and appreciate what these efforts are about. I do have concerns about the ability to reach the desired enrollment, actually the necessary enrollment. And I wish that we had requested, or that they had submitted maybe that list of folks who have, it's not a commitment, but it's a little bit more than interest, you know, that you have names and grades and you can actually identify people. We did ask about the interest, and I still have some concerns about these various items. It's a real mix of issues that don't always have to be completely resolved, because I know things unfold as they work towards opening, but there are a lot of question marks there that I just didn't get resolved. Somebody else may have some, might be helpful.
I echo a few of the things you said, but first of all, especially with 306 families and that's 245 students, and not knowing what the grade span is of that those students would possibly serve, I imagine it could be K-1 heavy. And then does that change, or is there gonna be a request to change just the grade levels to K-1 the first year instead of K-5 like they had planned, which we've seen before? And then the other is, as you expand from elementary school up into middle school, generally, not always, but generally, you start seeing a 4-teacher combo and one teaching science, one teaching math, whatever. And we see the staff only going up 2 per year. You know, so I just, that makes me wonder about the ability to schedule and make sure that you've got that experience with what does middle school look like different than elementary school. And then, of course, some of the things that you've already noted in the budget, you know, and having one counselor the 5 years that have been budgeted out here, as enrollment goes up, there's no change in the counseling number. So, again, great idea, great passion. I'm concerned that there's gonna be a problem with the follow through, and then also getting the students to be there.
I agree. That's a very aggressive enrollment number for particularly our single gender, particularly with the saturation that we do have in Mecklenburg County. I think that's a big lift. If it was relying on Ms. Johnson's passion only, I know she'd double that enrollment. It's very obvious. I have concerns with being a single gender. Can we meet those numbers? But that's where
And I hear that too, and have concerns that enough wasn't done to market the school by providing more community meetings, which are, I mean, obviously you need that. So I wasn't seeing that or hearing that.
Todd, I'm wondering, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I said to my neighbor over here, you know, I find myself in an interesting situation of, you know.
Pull your mic down
Oh,
there.
sorry. And I agree. I mean, I think that there's an argument to be made for the need. As someone who knows exactly what it's like to market, sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully, a single-gender charter school. You know, I too have worked with the marketing agency that they talk about. It's also the agency that worked with Saba. That concerns me. The thing I think that I'm missing here, as I listen to the applicant, I think they have great intentions, and I think that they have some good ideas. I however, don't think that they have dug deeply enough or have made enough of a plan for why this should be single gender and how they're going to serve single gender academically, culturally, socio-emotionally. I don't know that I don't think that they have risen to the bar of, you know, what the legislation says, you know, related to Title IX and serving single gender. I think that will be tough for them. I don't know. I wish that they were co-ed with single gender classrooms maybe in some things, but visiting one 6-12 school, but not really having a plan for what the curriculum will look like, what your counselors will look like, what the day will look like, how you're specifically serving males. If you're going to make the argument that you need a single gender school, you have to make the argument of how you're going to serve a single gender population differently and why you need to be single gender to accomplish your mission and goal. And I don't think they've done that.
What about the enrollment part? And do you guys notice that, are you noticing any trends in enrollment that maybe differ from the operators who have, you know, COVID schools?
Yeah, so,
For anybody that doesn't know, give background on why specifically he's asking you that question. What kind of school you run?
sure, so, I run a single gender, all-girls 6-12 school in Wilmington, the first in the state. And man, we made a lot of good decisions and a lot of bad decisions along the way, right? And there are things that you can account for. There are things that you can do in culture and things that you can do in marketing knowledge. There are also things that happen when you're in a single gender environment around culture that sometimes even creates stigma in the community, where it makes it more difficult to recruit students. And those things are things that you learn from the easy way or the hard way. And I will tell you that, you know, we have seen that in our space, you know, where sometimes, despite your best efforts, public opinion wins out over all the best marketing and intentions that exist. You know, for us, over time, I think what we have seen is, you know, a curve in that where our graduation rates and, you know, the things that we've been achieving academically are winning out, but it's a steep hill.
The school that you run for girls, what's the socioeconomic background of the majority of the students?
So we are roughly 80% free and reduced lunch.
Yeah, I echo some of the comments and concerns being raised. I guess I do want to state that it's difficult because of the action we just had in front of us, a school, all-boys school with a very specific academic focus that we had to close down because they couldn't get their enrollment. And that should, in one respect, not impact this application in any way. Different school, different focus, different part of the state. But nevertheless, we'd be lying if we didn't say we heard every every step along the way, yep, the students are coming, the students are coming, the students are coming, and they just never came. So, but I do want to say to the applicant that I'm looking at through the lens of not comparing you to any other school but your own desires and hopes here for a school here in this area of Mecklenburg. What I'm struggling with is, I know how I voted. I voted to provide a second interview, and that vote was contingent upon come back in 2 months or 45 days and show us the work that you've done. That will make me feel more comfortable that you had the demand. And now you're back, and I don't feel any more comfortable. I'm not a marketing expert. I think it may have been a miscalculation to say we're not gonna do any events.
I kind of echo Todd. I thought at every turn, the answers left something to be desired. I thought Rita did just an amazing job of not only her own research, but questions, and then the responses to her questions, again, left a lot to be desired. The idea of 306 families, I thought, Rita, when you asked that question and you said, all right, well, they're putting multiple students, I thought they were gonna say like 500 or something, and it went up lower than the actual number, which threw me way off. And then the majority of those kids are in the kindergarten age. I thought every time there was a question asked, it was halfway there. So even the question of what if they visited, first off, I don't think the Virginia school is a charter. They only got like 7 charters there or something like that. And I'm not sure that's accurate. And then Morehouse, and then, the school in Florida, which was an upper grade school. It just feels like a group that, with a lot of passion, needs a lot more detail and focus on nuance and focus on, why single gender, and in this case all boys, work in a much more deeper way than I think we're being provided today.
Some of my concerns are, there's the issue of can we reach enrollment, a critical level of enrollment. And a single gender school immediately knocks out half of the potential enrollees. In addition, for a boys' single gender school, we have here an emphasis on music. Now, I know from other schools of the arts that they tend to attract girls. Schools that emphasize the arts are more heavily attended by females. It doesn't mean that there aren't males that would enjoy it, and if they're exposed to it, that they would benefit greatly from it. I took music lessons in elementary school. Nevertheless, in recruitment, that emphasis, at least in a marketing sense, I'm not sure that emphasis is likely to boost enrollments. In fact, boys seem to be much more interested in sports, and a program that promised to spend an hour a day tiring them out in physical activities might be viewed positively. But I'm not suggesting what the marketing should be, but the point is, there's already a concern about reaching the numbers, and this is a space where numbers are gonna be, and all the evidence suggests numbers would be hard to reach anyway. So it seems to me that the school needs to have some clarity on fairly large numbers of boys where parents are interested in the arts per se. Also, the entrepreneurship program, my experience with that has always been in upper levels, in middle school, high school, colleges. Maybe that's something that kindergartners need to be exposed to, but it seems like that could squeeze out something else that they should be exposed to. Now, I can certainly see why we would reach out to the business community to find those community leaders to be engaged with the school. But it's not clear to me that the whole bundle of priorities is consistent with running a single-gender elementary school. I think one of the reasons that you might not have visited other boys' elementary schools is that apparently there aren't very many. And there may be a reason for that. If there were strong demand for single-gender elementary schools, you might see some somewhere. Now, every idea has to begin somewhere. I understand that. But those are definitely concerns that I have.
Is anyone prepared to make a motion? The options are move to ready to open or not move to ready to open.
Mr. Chair, I move that we do not recommend them ready to open.
All right, we have a
Hilda
motion.
Perley.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do want to make it clear that I obviously support single-gender education. I think there's a place for it. I want to see it grow in this state. But to be successful at it requires passion and a whole lot of data, research, planning, and professional development, proper recruiting, all the pieces and parts to make that successful. I'd love to see that work done and for this group and others to grow single-gender education in the state.
I concur, I agree with that. I would love to see Ms. Johnson develop a successful program. I believe that she will have a great impact, but I think it all comes down to the numbers. And it's the numbers in the interest, and it's numbers in the budget and the personnel, and even numbers in the data that I'm not sure I see the great support that this, all that doesn't mean this school might, could make a difference. The data doesn't really bear that out, that this combination of things with this mission would see improvement in test scores or student development.
Any further comment? All right, Ashley?
Eric Sanchez?
Aye.
Bruce Friend?
Aye.
Rita Hare?
Aye.
Stephen Gay?
Aye.
Nicole Parlay?
Approves.
Alex Quigley?
Aye.
Todd Godby?
Aye.
Dave Machado?
Aye.
Shelley Shope?
Aye.
Bart Danielson?
Aye.
John Eldridge?
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Thank you. All righty.
Liberty Charter, you. Want to take a bio break?
Yeah, next applicant is scheduled for 11:15. Why don't we take a 5-minute break
Okay.
and come back at, we'll make it 8 minutes, 11:10.
Okay.
final second round applicant for today, Liberty Charter Academy in Guilford County, a fully K-12 school by year 4. And so the review board asked about a dozen questions for Liberty Charter Academy. Mr. O'Day is the board chair. He is here. There's also representation from the EMO, American Traditional Academies here. There has also been some supplemental information linked to eBoard for you, as well as those responses. Currently 13 charters in Guilford, 1 lab school, 126 traditional schools. You have their mission statement, their transportation and nutritional plans are listed there for you. And then the LEA demographic comparison is on that second slide. And so I will allow the 5 minutes opening statement for your board Liberty Charter, again, abbreviated 45-minute time span that we have to answer those questions that were provided. But for now, 5 minutes, Mr. O'Day, and whoever's going to make the opening statement, Mary Catherine Sauer is here, representing the EMO as well for those questions. So I will turn the floor over to you all now, Liberty Charter Academy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank the board for your time again this morning and your consideration for our application. I'm John O'Day. I'm fortunate enough to chair this board of tremendous professionals and individuals. Not with us today, but on the phone is Matthew Snyder, who's the vice chair, and then we have Mr. McCall and Mr. Miller to my right, and just behind me, Mr. Williams and Mr. Jones, all present today. So I'm going to step aside and let Mr. McCall address you for a few minutes, and then we'll answer any questions that you have.
How's everybody today?
Morning.
Good.
Good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. You know, they asked me to get up and present this PowerPoint to you, and if you're wondering why I got the honor of doing this, it's because I've got the best legs on the team. So, but you know, you've got this really great PowerPoint that we put together, and this really talks about how we came to choose an EMO, and specifically American Traditional Academies, to partner with. And you'll see on the first slide there, currently operating charter schools in the state, about a quarter, or almost a quarter, either use an EMO or a CMO, with 169 independent or traditional run schools. On the second slide there, you see that the number of schools that have been closed after opening, and you all are probably familiar with this data because this is part of your oversight and the things that you do, is 2 of those schools closed and had EMOs, and the rest did not. If you flip to the next slide there, if you look at the percentage of schools closed after opening, only 5% of EMO partnered schools had to close, with almost 22% of the independent schools closing. The next slide, actually the next 2 slides, this is just a comparison. American Traditional Academies is going to be in that left-hand column at the top, and then it has other EMOs listed underneath those. One of those is Charter One, which I believe you all approved within the last month or so. But it looks at the provisions or the back-end support that American Traditional Academies is going to provide this board and this school in comparison to some other EMOs that you were probably very familiar with. It shows the different provisions as well as the fee or the percentage that those EMOs have agreed to with the school that they're running. And really, to kind of boil it down, you know, we have decided as a board that the best path forward for this school to succeed is to partner with ATA. You know, specific experience in this space is something that they know. Mary Catherine Sauer has been involved with charter schools for seems like forever now. She has not only served in the capacity as a board member, as a principal, but also now as the executive director of ATA. And this organization can really help provide comprehensive and effective support for our school. As a board, we want to be a governing board. We want to be a board of oversight. We want to be a board that ensures the integrity of the charter. We don't necessarily want to be bogged down in the day-to-day operations, and that's where ATA's expertise comes in. They're going to be able to provide support and training for the principal, for the staff, for the teachers. They're going to be able to allow us to remain that governing board. And we really feel that it's our belief, We genuinely feel that this school will be a success as we partner with ATA. So with that, I guess I'll open it up to the Q&A session and hand it back over to you guys.
All right, thank you. Good
Yes, sir.
afternoon. Yes, so welcome back. As a reminder for the board members, when they were before us back in September, we voted 4-3 to give them a second interview. That's why they're here today. There were any number of questions. I think the number is 10 that we submitted.
Is that all?
as,
Felt like 100.
Second interview questions, and so we have those in front of us. So who would like to begin? Maybe start with any comments or questions related to the second round interview questions that we sent to them.
One thing the board did ask for was a comprehensive list of services, and we did supply that as a supplemental document. You have it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that as well. Well, I'll open up. I'm not sure if this was my question or not in the second round, but none of the board members have K-12 experience.
True. That's
Mhm.
correct.
Ease my mind on that.
Okay.
If you have no K-12 experience, how do you feel comfortable making the decision to hand the operations off to another K-12 based company?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I certainly understand that. And your sympathies were felt when we were here last time. This board is highly competent. Each one of us comes from an area of expertise that we feel allows us to be able to provide that oversight. We have an individual on this board who has lived in the marketing world. We have an individual who's lived in the consulting world, in the IT space. We have a finance guru. We have 2 public servants. We have someone that was in the Marine Corps for 14 years and handled logistics. So as a board, we feel that while K-12 experience is certainly welcome, and we would definitely be open to adding someone to the board with that background, we feel that ATA brings that specialty to the table with their experience, and Mary Catherine Sauer with her leadership and her access to resources and trainings and back-end support will really help the day-to-day operations of the school run smoothly. The curriculum itself is a proven curriculum, as well as most of this model is a proven model. It's been something that's been replicated many times over. So as a board, we feel like it's not necessarily our place to get stuck in the weeds on some of the K-12 curriculum or those kinds of topics, because that's not our area of expertise. Our area of expertise is making sure that this school runs financially in a sound manner. You are offering us to be stewards of money from this state, and we certainly hold that at a very high level. And that's what we want to be able to focus on.
And one thing to add, Matthew Snyder is he's not a K-12 educator. He is a college educator and certainly understands, as we want to be a college, we want to send our kids to college. Matthew certainly understands the educational mission, and certainly one thing I would say is probably the zealot that on our board that would be protecting that educational mission.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
Hello? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I don't have direct experience with K-12 education, but I do have 37 years now experience teaching first-year college students. And I've got about going on 25 years of academic administration at the college level. And I think that a lot of the administrative aspects of my job that I've picked up over the past quarter century or so will be applicable. They're not going to be exactly the same as in the K-12 environment, but they'll definitely be applicable. But as both John and Doug said, my real interest in this is to prepare students going all the way back to kindergarten for that culminating educational experience in college. More and more of our students are going to college And I think that my experience with seeing them as they come out of the K-12 system is something that will help both protect the integrity of our school and our curriculum, and also help us provide the right kind of oversight for the EMO.
Other questions from CSOB members?
Is this school considered a classical?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
So completely in your curriculum, it's just not in the name? Some people call
That's
it,
right.
name it a classical, so you are a classical education.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question about enrollment. I think that the same board came in November of 2021. Maybe.
Similar makeup, a
Right.
little different.
And your year one was 376. And then you came back in September 2022 and your year one was 376. And now you've come this year and you have a year one of 645. I'm just wondering why you decided to go so big.
So there is we decided to pivot because we have found through interactions in the community that there is a substantial need for a K-12 charter school. So the added enrollment now shows that we are going to start our build. Our foundation is going to be a K-9 foundation, and then we will add a grade each year after that. In previous iterations, we were starting as a K-5 with the idea to build to a K-8. But what we have seen with some other charter schools in the area, if they don't offer a high school, they begin to bleed students in that 7th, 8th grade year, and particularly families with multiple children. If there is not a high school option for the oldest sibling, many families have pulled all of their children when they have been able to get another option on the table. So we felt that this was the best, not only for the need within the community, but also to help those families that are really kind of in a conundrum to make a decision of what's the best path forward for their children.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, I'm gonna use the term you just used. You said there's a substantial need.
Yes, sir.
So I'm asking you the same question I just asked the applicant before you.
Mm-hmm.
When you came up for us before, we have your, from your application, you did a survey with about 300 families responded.
Mm-hmm.
Bridge the gap from 300 on the survey to you knowing there's a substantial need, and what marketing activities, enrollment activities, interest work has been done since you were before us back in September?
Well, a lot of it is based off of the wait list with other charter schools in the area. So if you may remember, my kids attend Revolution Academy, and their wait list is somewhere in the 700 to 800 number. Cornerstone, which is a K-12 option, has a wait list of over 1,000. All of the charter schools in the area have a high demand. So that's we're looking at that from a historical standpoint and what their demand is. We have not done any, Mary Catherine, I don't believe we've done any additional marketing in the last few months. You know, I know anecdotally, being a parent of kids in a charter school, you know, some of those very decisions that I talked about, where parents are having to think, okay, where do my kids go from here if there's not a high school option? Those conversations are being had. And Revolution, for example, lost quite a few students year over year because there was no high school option. Go ahead, John.
And we're in we are definitely in an area of need, Southwest Guilford County, and I think that Dr. Eldridge would agree is an area that is in need of better educational options for the kids in that particular area, in particular that area of Guilford County.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate that. I guess my only comment, for what it's worth, and it's my opinion, is be careful about assessing that there'll be substantial need for your school because the schools around you have a large wait list. There's a reason why those families are on that wait list, because there's something happening at those schools that they want. And you know, I can think of my own school where I have an 1,800 student wait list, and 5 miles away a school that is under enrolled. So
Well,
one
we have
doesn't
to-
necessarily equate to the other.
We have to be a high-performing school, sure, to draw from that wait list. However, Revolution Academy was a Mary Catherine Sauer school. Cornerstone was another school that Mary Catherine Sauer helped found. So those schools that are very popular with high wait lists have had some involvement with our ATA. special director, or ATA executive director.
It sort of sounds like you're saying that if we build it, they will come, and that might be true, but do you have,
We have to build it really well and they'll
Yeah.
come.
yeah, do you have an interest list? Do you have a number that you could give us today?
I think out of that 300, or close to 300 folks that we surveyed, I think it was 96% would come to a school if it was K-12 in that area. They
And
would
when
be
did that survey
interested.
take place?
Year and a half?
No, it was April, May of last year,
Okay.
Of 2022?
or April, May, 6, 7 months ago, this year.
Okay.
Guys, I know we broached this last time, but can you give me an overview of facility procurement and how that worked out and what the current terms are? What the proposed terms are, I should say.
For a facility, we don't currently have a facility. We have a few options potentially for
And-
facilities, but at this point, we haven't secured.
But you do have a company you're going with for procurement of that facility, is that correct?
Yep.
And can you help me understand, I guess, how that was procured, how that decision was made? And what they're offering that is competitive and within your budget? You know, that would help us understand why you made that decision.
And that's part of the reason we partnered with ATA, is that they have access to development organizations, companies that have been building charter schools all across the United States. And so, you know, even one of our board members has a real estate license, so he's already been assessing land and property, and where we can put this school so that it's geographically a success around the need. So, you know, it's 619 days from today that we want to open our doors. I think I challenged you guys last time. That number was a little bit higher, but it's 619 days. So if you say yes today, then that's when we get started. We leave here immediately and we start going through our checklist, going through our launch plan, getting those things in place.
Can I ask you about your staffing plan? I was looking through it and comparing it side by side with your growth plan. Help me understand how you guys thought about it and why you feel the size of the staff is adequate, despite what I'm seeing, it looks rather lean.
You got an idea?
It's based on actual models from other schools. So that staffing model is not just a model that was put together out of the ether. It was one that's based on an actual working model in a working school.
And how does it work for your school? Like, why does that, you know, we all,
It's a start, right? You gotta start somewhere. That's the staffing level we believe the school can start with. If we have to adjust, we will
let me ask you
certainly
better.
adjust.
My question's not specific enough, so let me ask you better. What is the board's philosophy on staffing as you think about having a K through 12 school in which there are different developmental needs along the way? How are you thinking about elementary versus middle versus high school, and how is that reflected in your staffing?
Well, I think you see larger classrooms at the high school, middle school level, smaller classroom sizes, class sizes meaning student to teacher sizes in the lower levels. You know, again, it's a staffing model that we built based on working schools that we believe will be effective, and that's what we work with our partners to develop. We believe it'll be effective for the opening of the school. If we need to make adjustments because we need more staff in one place or the other, that's what we'll do.
And this staffing plan came from ATA?
Correct.
All right, last question too from me. With regard to the organizational chart, it seems to beg the question of how oversight will look. And I guess you guys have done it
From which perspective?
from the perspective that it feels that the governing board is giving ATA, I guess, the autonomy to run the administration, the staff, the school improvement team, the PTO, the students, the parents.
Mhm.
I could be reading it incorrectly, you could tell me if I am, but that's what it feels like what I'm seeing.
So we hold the charter, right? We own the charter as the board. ATA works for us. ATA will handle the daily operations of the school. Handle the daily operations, administration of the school. We will function in an oversight role. So we'll have regular board meetings where ATA is in attendance to talk about progress toward goals, how we're meeting those goals. If we're not on track, what are we doing? What are we gonna do to course correct?
But you're looking at the same chart as me, right?
Right.
It seems to suggest that you guys don't have any oversight over the administration, that it's an indirect, oversight. I mean, that's what I'm just looking at, what I'm seeing.
From a
Rather than
day-to-day standpoint, I can see
dual
that.
lines or dotted lines or any other ways that people creatively do this, it is a straight line, which is ATA, and then you guys don't have any of the lines pointing to you.
Yep. Well, maybe a more effective picture, and, you know, if I was to redraw this right now, it'd be a three-legged stool, Mr. Sanchez. You can't have this school be successful without all three pieces: ATA, this board, and the administration. And this board is gonna be the one that's responsible for setting policy and procedure, for evaluating policy and procedure, behavior policy, for example. We're gonna be the one tasked with creating that policy, and what the levels of enforcement will be. ATA will help implement that in terms of training the staff to take our policies and procedures and make them effective. But, you know, it's up to us to uphold the integrity of the charter. Again, we are stewards of this charter. And ATA knows, we hold the charter. They might be running the day-to-day operations, but we're their boss.
So if I'm gonna summarize what you're saying, you're telling me this is probably an incorrect, presentation of what it will actually be.
I wouldn't say it's incorrect. I would say we're adaptable. I mean, every single one of us in this room has had to learn how to do things differently in the last 4 years.
I know, but every answer's like that right now. I'm asking about
Okay,
the
but,
staff
okay, so let me ask you this.
Everything is.
We have a proven curriculum, we have a proven board, we have a proven EMO. So this feels a little bit like a smokescreen to me. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, sir, but we feel like this board believes that ATA is where this school is gonna be successful.
But then that's what you should say. That
That's
you're
what I
not
just said.
creating- That you're not creating the policies, that ATA will, and that they will be the ones then to implement it, and that the chart is correct.
But
And
we
if
have
you-
to,
if
we
you stand
approve,
by that, it doesn't mean you will lose votes, it just
we
means that.
approve, we approve the policies, right? That's our job as a governing,
So the
governing
board,
board.
without K through 12 representation, is gonna create policies for K through 12 schools, in which then ATA will implement.
No, you got that backwards. ATA will create the policies, we will approve the policies or modify and approve the policies that ATA creates.
And then they'll.
We're the governing board, so it's our responsibility to understand how the school is run, not in the day-to-day. I'm not gonna get into what's gonna happen in the classroom on a day-to-day level, but if there's a policy that the school requires to function, we are, as the board, would approve policies that ATA and maybe ourselves also bring forward for the good of the overall school and administration of that school.
And you guys feel you're gonna be suited to do that?
Sure.
Yes, without a
I mean,
doubt.
I see the budget expertise, I see the
Absolutely.
marketing expertise, I see the business expertise. It was brought up, the K through 12 expertise, that's why I'm asking, so the nuance of
we have-
educational policy, you're saying you guys will be ready to oversee that
Correct.
and make changes if necessary, brought to you by ATA.
Correct.
Yes,
No, appreciate the answer.
thank you, sir.
So ATA has worked with other schools in the past, correct?
So Mary Catherine Sauer, who's the executive director of ATA, has opened several schools in Guilford County. Been participating in those through whatever boards were at her disposal at that particular time. ATA has one open school in Rockingham County, Legacy Charter.
Do you know if that school has ever faced any sort of disciplinary action?
It was the first, it's
First year.
first year, so it just opened this year.
Okay. Do you know if any of the other schools have faced disciplinary action by the state board?
Not to our knowledge.
No disciplinary action that I'm aware of.
One of the concerns is lack of K-12 expertise on the board. I interacted with a school in Panama City, Florida, some years ago, that was started by, it's a charter school started by a real estate developer. And they had a board with nobody on it that had any education expertise. Really, they had deep business expertise. And actually the name of that school was University Academy. Now, the university, they had nobody on the board was affiliated with the university either. But
We have one of those.
okay, well, the university, College of Education provided the expertise on curriculum and the academic side, and they were, the board was pretty modest about what their educational expertise was, and therefore, they dealt with what it seems to me a board should deal with, the high-level concerns, and they monitored what was going on and became educated when they needed to become educated on topics. So that concerns me a little bit less. What steps are you gonna take to be sure that the issues, I guess my question is the board gonna be talking to anybody other than ATA to assess as time goes by, what issues they should be aware of that ATA might or might not raise? In other words, how are you gonna educate yourself outside of just being told by the person you're contracting with?
Well, that's where we aim to hire a strong principal. We need a strong principal, someone that's going to be there day to day. We will work closely with that principal to make sure that all those issues are addressed. I mean, we're not completely clueless to K-12 education. I mean, I have personally, I'm working on graduating my 5th child in the house. One graduated from NC State with the engineering degree. Another child that will be a doctor soon, we hope, fingers crossed. Another kid at Guilford Tech Community College, and so we're not, and they've all been homeschooled, so we're not completely clueless to K-12 education, but we are not educators. So we will have to lean heavily on the principal.
Let me also
We're also
mention
gonna
that-
survey, right, parents in the school, for the effectiveness of the education.
Let me also mention that school in Panama City is the highest rated school in the entire county. So they were able
That's
to
our goal.
overcome that, the lack of education expertise on the board.
Sir, listen, I'm not here to make this about me, but I've helped graduate over 60 young men and women, helped them get in college. I run a mentor program. I have about 15 kids that I address day to day, about 4 days a week. If I'm not helping them eat, I'm helping them fill out applications, I'm helping them get jobs, I'm helping with homework. This is more than just a passion project. We understand that it is business, but we are heavily invested in education and helping children. That's why we're here. That's what we're asking for. And so I do get it. We're not K-12 educators, but we have meat in the game. We have skin in the game, and we're bringing a professional expertise to it. So there are some challenges. We do recognize that. We are working on those things, but as he said, we know we'll survey parents. I think we have a schedule to how we will survey parents, and we will also hire a strong principal, which we have 3 in mind. So we don't come to this clueless. We ask you all to work with us and to help us get the school open.
May I interject real quick?
Yes, sir.
If y'all right, remember, Victor Jones, I served on city council for High Point for 6 years, and that's a board. And board information is public information. So if someone has a problem with city staff, they can look up the board, the city council, and they address us, and that's what we do, is address the issues that are brought forth to the board. So I believe the actual answer to your question is, we are publicly accessible to parents, students, people in the community, whatever. Principal ATA, the board is that checks and balances. People will reach out to us as the board members, knowing that we're responsible for the operations of the school, and we do our job as a board to make sure those issues get addressed. That's my answer to that question.
Yeah,
May I add also that we are going to be looking very closely, I'm going to be looking very closely at the results of the learning assessments that are going to be done in all grades periodically. I have some expertise in that. I designed learning assessment programs for general education at 2 universities, Chapman University in California and High Point University here in North Carolina. And that's a source of information that also will tell us how the school is doing, not just in terms of business, but in terms of its mission of educating young people. And though, again, I've spent my 37 years as a teacher in colleges and universities, I do see students who have just come out of those environments, and I know how assessment of student learning actually works and what it can tell you and what it can't tell you. And we intend on the board to use that information to make sure that ATA is delivering the kind of product that we expect. And I see that as particularly one of my roles on the board.
Thank you. We're actually up against time, so you have 5 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay. You haven't met Mr. Williams. He was unable to attend the last time. Well, he's going to give our closing statement. Thank you very much.
Good morning. First, I did want to address the idea that I think I get the crux of what you were asking, and that is that this board will not function in a vacuum. You're saying just, would we get all of our information, every bit of insight? What should we do from ATA? There's a vast educational community in North Carolina. And with our expertise in business, we know where that ends. The board won't function in a vacuum. We will function with other educational institutions, experts around to get ideas of what's happening, just like you would do in business. But today I do want to, just ask you guys, answer for a question why you should approve. And I think you should approve this school because we are a competent, professional governing board. We do understand that the charter is ours and that ATA works for us. The plan that we have is a proven plan that has worked and continues to work. And we have had various meetings, sat down, deliberated, worked through what we want to do and how we plan to do it. And we think that the path we're taking is the best one to get us there. Should we find that things need to change, we are certainly able to adapt. Our EMO, the agreement is comparable to other EMOs operating in North Carolina. The services the EMO provides are comparable with those other EMOs. And this is our 3rd application. And what you have before you is a document, is a submission that has been improved based on what you've given us. We've taken your input each year, the feedback you've given us, and we have implemented it into what you see today. So I want to directly ask today for your approval for this charter school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, now's our time for deliberation. Would anyone like to share sort of what your thoughts are about this applicant?
I still had a few specific questions, but we just didn't have time. Mr. O'Day talked about the lower class size and how the structure worked for him. But I counted like K through 9, 645 students is an average class size of 25. But I know they won't have an average and every class be the same. But in that year 1, they have 2 assistants throughout the school with 645 and no guidance counselor unless something has changed. The last time I inquired about that, they indicated they might use a 1099 contract for a guidance counselor. I don't know if the other schools they mentioned, Cornerstone and Revolution, if that's their model, if there's no guidance counselor there. But I didn't get a chance to ask those questions. I don't know if they have 6 board members. I think they have one that maybe moved off and a new one that came on, but I don't see any female input into their board, and I think they could benefit from another perspective. If they were to add a board member, I think that would be bring some strength that women can bring. Might be a little different.
Alex?
I feel like I share the concerns that Eric raised around, and kind of that Rita's hitting on, is just around personnel. Seems super lean in terms of the number of core content teachers, particularly in high school. You just get that ninth grade. Everybody knows you're gonna end up with like smaller class size. They're probably not gonna get as many 9th graders as they think. Maybe they're just kind of, 90 9th graders for a brand new school. That just seems, maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like a lot. And then you're gonna end up with fewer students, and they're gonna be small classes, which are gonna be more expensive. And I'm not saying you can't break the norm, but we just have a lot of data that supports. Yeah, it doesn't seem like enough teachers. And then, to Rita's point, 2 instructional assistants and $8,000 for substitutes. What?
I was agreeing with the level
Yeah,
of
that-
substitutes I said this month.
That's. And then you have your instructional coach basically covering classes. People start getting EC people to cover classes, legal. No counselor. And then we just bleed into this whole conversation around the management organization. Is then are we running a deficit model, and can we count on the management company to then cut their 14% fee? So I just have more questions, and I feel like I have confidence. I think the board is really strong, and I actually don't have a lot of issues with them not having educators on the board. Like, I don't think educators make the best board members, to be totally honest. A lot of time they have their own agenda, and they have. I'd like to see a principal on the board when they start, because I think that visionary around the education is ideal. There's data. The Fordham Foundation has done a big study on how one of the key indicators of success is having the founding principal on the board at the outset. Schools that have that are much more likely to be successful. But I don't think educators on the board really needs a whole lot.
I'll jump on that. I think I would agree with Rita that I think diversifying the board would be in their best interest.
Yeah, definitely
I think
women
it's
on the board.
It's a strong board.
Everybody knows they're smarter than you.
I think that,
True.
I like Bart's, I like Dr. Danielson's.
True.
Come on now. I don't think we'd
It's
have many
unraveling.
problems.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bruce.
Women running the country.
I do agree with I appreciate Dr. Danielson's question about it's a strong board, expertise in the fields that their expertise is in. But there are some things from a K-12 perspective I think would benefit what are you gonna do to learn that? Like, for example, I've got an 8-member board. I've got a few of you you wanna be a core knowledge school. I've got a couple board members that can tell you everything there is to know about core knowledge. And the answer shouldn't be talk to my EMO or talk to my principal. That's like fundamentally as a board member, you should be able to, maybe not all of you, but in those different areas of expertise, be able to make sure that, like, a parent should be able to come to you and say, tell me about what core knowledge is. Tell me, and so that's how I look at it. So I appreciated the question, what will you do to kind of learn that part of this?
I have a question.
I still have a concern about substantial need.
I can,
Stuck on that. They'll come because other schools in our area have wait lists. That may be true, but I think there's also examples where that's not true.
I'll just, as far as the need goes, just as experience. And I appreciate all the experience I gained working in Guilford County, but if you look at the southwest side and in the High Point area at the test scores that those schools are generating, there's a definite need for a focus on a traditional education that students just are struggling, and an environment in which learning is the central focus of what we're doing at school, and so I noticed a strong board, and I would think that having connections in the community would certainly help that out, but I can attest that there's a need for a strong school for students that need that kind of education in this area.
I had concerns. I think there were sentences that come up. I mean, Rita said something like, so you're saying if you build, they'll come, and then Bruce just talked about this idea of a lot being deferred to the EMO. It felt like throughout the questionings that, and even the PowerPoint presentation basically suggested it, along with the organizational chart, that everything is being deferred over there. I know that there was a pivot to the three-legged stool and things like that, but it just didn't give the confidence that the board has been really intimately involved in a lot of those conversations, and I think a founding board needs to. Maybe as the board, as a school progresses, and it achieves success, you can argue that, there's a different skill set needed for that sustainability, but the founding board, I think, needs that. The question about, facility and how that decision was made seemed to rest all in the hands of the EMO, but we've discussed before that the EMO, has some relationship, and I think as such, conflicts, with the real estate group that they're working with. I just think that, I just didn't get the depth from the board that that organizational chart wasn't exactly what has really happened, which is that an EMO was hired to do every single thing, and we can sit back and make sure the budget works and make sure maybe a couple things there, but other than that, they hire the principal, they run the educational program, they get the facility person, they do this, they do that, and if we see something wrong, we'll respond. And to me, that's just not good enough if we're going to be approving boards, not EMOs.
This is the third time I think this board's come before us, and every time they've come before us, I think they've grown, and I'm not getting the same perception as you are, Eric. I feel like this board does understand its role. It was stated multiple times, they own the charter, and they're asking the EMO to do the day-to-day operations. I like the fact that they are involved in the community. I'm not extremely familiar with High Point, but enough to know that there is definitely a need for a high-quality charter school in High Point. They're very involved in this area. We all know that the biggest reason a charter school fails is because of financial incompetence. This board right here certainly has a business background to make sure that doesn't happen. I have the confidence that they will. My concern, your PowerPoint showing what the other EMOs in the state are doing, and you guys are in line with what other EMOs are doing. My concern has always been, do you have the same financial, does the EMO still have the same financial whereabouts that they can fund some deficits if something happens? Because a lot of those EMOs you're looking at did have it. But going back to your application, I think it was the EMO's putting in guaranteeing $500,000. So that gives me the comfort that if something goes wrong or there's a shortfall for enrollment, that they have the ability to fund those things. So I'm comfortable with that. And just somebody that has had a lot of dealings with Mary Catherine Sawyer, is the EMO Mary Catherine, or is Mary Catherine the EMO? It's they're together. I'm not trying to speak so highly of her, she can't go through the doorway, but she has opened up or been a main operator of some of the most successful schools in that Guilford County, and to me, that means a lot. You guys, you're with her at the helm of your EMO. She knows how to open a successful charter school, and so I applaud you for that. So I'm definitely going to support this application.
I would say, I think one of the signs of a good board is that they can find good people to work with. And in this case, they've identified someone who's had success in the past and chosen to partner with them. And that seems to me to be a sign of a competent board.
Other questions, thoughts that CSRB members would like to share?
I tend to support.
Am I correct in remembering that the contract with ATA is a 5-year contract? Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you could you go ahead, we have 5 minutes, can you address Dave's question about the financial wherewithal? You know, if something goes awry, you know, you build a facility, you find you got $1 million worth of granite to remove that you didn't expect, like, what's the financial capacity of ATA?
Is that something I can address?
Yeah, please, yeah.
We're a startup. We have one operating school, we're trying to get another. And so as an EMO ourselves, we don't have deep pockets, but we're partnered with people who have deep pockets and are willing and have put assurances together that they will help us when we need help. We've had to do that for Legacy a little bit. Because, you know, their enrollment was not what we expected. And we're helping them get through this year, and we're making the plans so that they don't need help next year, and we're on track to do that. And with the same, they've actually given assurances for more money for this school because it'll be bigger and there's a little more risk there. So they say up to $500,000, but they would give more. They're committed to helping us make this work.
And can you name two of those partners?
Those are Mike Morley with American Charter Development.
In the contract, it talks about that if there were revenue shortfalls, ATA would provide a loan to the school, so you don't operate in a deficit. And it says the terms of the loan would be determined by an agreement of ATA and the board. Hypothetically, what if the board can find money to cover the shortfall less expensive than ATA? Is that something that's gonna require?
No, absolutely. They can, if they can fundraise, if they can find other people to loan them money, we are absolutely supportive of that. One of the reasons we put that in there, and one of the reasons that we have the assurances of getting that money, is because that's one of the most difficult things for a startup charter school. You don't have any reserves. The way the state gives you money is not the way it has to be paid out. And so first year charter schools have to watch that cash flow. I'm gonna say most of them probably fall into a deficit throughout this school year and need some help. And we're there to provide that help. But if they can find other help, no, that's beautiful.
Can I ask a question? I think you heard the conversation about ACD and that your partner, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, is on both, right? AC.
Yes.
He's with you and then.
Yes.
And then I also see, you know, from the PowerPoint that the EMO may subcontract services and so forth. How do you avoid the conflict of interest, like the appearance of a conflict of interest in any of these procurements that you're doing?
And so I'm gonna kind of go back to, I don't really have new ideas. I look at what works and what other people are doing well, and adjust it if I need to. But I think the EMO model that I've been looking at is not crazy different. Most EMOs buy the property and own the property. We've separated that out to make it better for the school, because if they have a contract for their building with ACD, but they want to kick ATA to the curb, they don't lose their building. So it's really a safeguard for the school. They're not in the same position that some other EMO schools are, where they can't make a decision because they're trapped with the building. So
But is there a bidding process or anything that's gonna be on public record or that is given to this board so that they say, all right, yeah, when we've looked at the three options regarding anything, any type of EMO subcontracting
Right.
service,
There-
they know that they're getting the best deal, not the best deal for the EMO.
no, there's not part of that, because they've contracted with us to do those things. Most of the subcontractor, when we subcontract things out, they've contracted with us, so we contract with someone else. If they don't get a good deal, we don't change our fee. It's just we take that hit as an EMO. So we provide the services for the same rate, whatever deal I can get. So I don't think that that's a decision the board has to make. As far as the facilities, the board is involved in choosing the site, in choosing a design, in all aspects of that. In the same way, if the board can get a better deal on through another company or something, we're open to that as well. Because we want if the school does well, it only is good for us. So we're definitely open to that. An example of that is at Revolution Academy, we had signed a contract with American Charter Development to do the building and to do that. American Charter Development found us someone who would give us a tax exempt municipal bond as a startup, which is unusual, but they took the hit. They're not getting that money from the lease because they found us better financing. It's not about a money grab, it's about what's best for the school.
Sure. Is there a conflict of interest policy in place that would ensure that the board is at least made aware if, I mean, who knows, right? You hire somebody to do shirts and it happens to be a brother of Morley or this or that or you or any, like, are they made aware of that? Is there a policy in place so they understand that that money is being transferred in that way?
They certainly can be made aware of that. We don't have a policy in place with certainly respect to specifically that. Of course, there's a conflict of interest policy in place for board members. But again, it's the same kind of thing where our fee is our fee, and we have to provide all the services within that fee. And so if I get charged too much for the financial services, that's on me, it's not on the school.
I'm going to say that, again, my hope is that if given the opportunity to build a charter in the area in which you guys are talking, that you're gonna deliver. Because I spent a lot of time there myself. I supervised 3 schools and spent a lot of time watching those kids work and how hard that work is. And I hope you guys are in for that. And by saying that, I'd like to make a motion that this board approve Liberty Charter Academy to move to the ready-to-open status.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have approval or motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to kind of support Dave's comments that I've seen John O'Day and I think even Matthew Snyder have been here since the beginning. And they continue to re-crunch the numbers and work on this application and plan in a way that I appreciate and respect. And I know we still have questions, as we always do. I think the largest would be that student number. It's a very aggressive start with what seems like the minimum side on personnel, but I believe that they have the strength, the expertise, and the ability to make the decisions to work that out, and they've got time to do that before they actually get on here. So I would be in support of this as well.
I think the board is, represented by good people, who are trying to do the right thing, trying to make a difference, and are highly skilled in many areas. I also thought the EMO answers, aside from the conflict of interest thing, which I think should exist more and more among EMOs, I think we've seen too much of it for it not to be responded to in a way that's more thoughtful, and gives better appearance. The optics are very obvious. I thought her answers were good, and so if I'm not in support, I don't want it to be a reflection of those people. I just thought there were just too many questions regarding staffing, org chart, oversight, and some of the people in the plans.
I would just add, I guess, from my thoughts, since we know how Alex feels about the landscape of getting a school off the ground is tough, particularly if you're not an EMO, and I don't disagree with that. At the same time, I'd say it's also tough if you are a newer EMO trying to get into the field, going against those that are well established, and
unless you come with like movement with foundation funding.
Yeah.
Or to me, I think, when we talk about EMO creation, it's either really like 3 different ways. Either you've existed out of state and you come in with existing capital. You funding like movement, which is external resources, someone wants to see this thing happen, or you do like a John Chatham Charter move where you basically have an existing school. I mean, that's how most CMOs have started. You have one school and then you seed more, and then you get economies of scale and combine the organization. I think that this is, I mean, I'm kind of with Eric. I really like the board, and I just have too many questions or concerns.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion to move Liberty Charter Academy into the ready to open phase of this cycle, and we have a second. Ashley, would you like to do roll call vote, please?
Eric Sanchez,
Nay.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Stephen Gay,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
Alex Quigley, Todd Godby,
Aye.
Dave Machado,
Aye.
Shelley Shope,
Aye.
Bart Danielson,
Aye.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
Bruce Friend.
Aye.
Okay. It passes 9-2, I think.
I'm not supposed to applaud?
Congratulations, you'll be ready to open, and the office will follow up with you. I hope you listen to both our suggestions, concerns, and, you know, maybe you will be back before us again. We have to vote one more time for you to actually have the approval to open, and so maybe some of the things that were addressed in today's interview and from back in September, whether it's diversity of the board or other questions that maybe you'll address.
On behalf of my associates and ATA, we thank you for your support.
Thank you. All right, is lunch ready? All right, we're gonna break for lunch.
Yes, we will return at 1 p.m. to start renewal.